I will just say thank you for coming to the Rivertown Films discussion of the Oscar-nominated short films in animation, live action, and documentary. We're here in part thanks to the generosity of the New York State Council on the Arts, as well as our members and donors and sponsors. And I'm going to turn this discussion over to Juliana Roth, who will introduce two other panelists. And everyone will get a chance to talk. We'll go over some votes and we'll take a little poll. Juliana.
Thank you everyone for being here, and to our two panelists for taking time to watch the films and to offer thoughts to everyone. So I'm Juliana Roth. I'm a media specialist here at Rivertown Film Society. I'm also a writer, storyteller, and I took the lead on the documentary category. So I will be representing documentary tonight. Next we have Charles Caster-Dudzick, who I'm sure a lot of you know. Charles is a graduate of the Nyack Public School System. He studied media production with Kathy Buckley there. He's an animator, filmmaker, painter, and composer. And he has shot a lot of films with a lot of local filmmakers and currently works in the art department on New Amsterdam. Norvin Van Dunk, I'm sure you also know. He is a local artist and musician. You probably best know him from the hip hop duo Tron and DVD, but this year he started his own label, Flynn Vivian Records, which is a really awesome project. And now he released his first solo record as Tron the Archer through that label. And during the day he works as a set dresser in the art department for film and TV. And he's working on some cool projects right now. So Charles is going to be representing animation and Norv representing the live action category. So we also welcome anyone here, if you've watched the films and you want to share your feelings on any of them or pop in with questions or thoughts. Like, it's a very informal space, so feel free to unmute and take part in the conversation as well. So with that, we also had circulated a survey in advance, and a lot of people voted. We're going to talk about it shortly. I'll also put it in the chat in case you didn't have a chance to offer your opinion. And we're also going to be doing a poll later in the night to see how you ranked the films yourself. And with that, I'll just pass the mic over to Charles. I don't know if you want to start and just tell us a little bit about your experience watching the animation, and maybe if you had a favorite film from your category.
Why, I'd love to. Well, this year, the animations selected have really run the gamut from complexity and, like, you know, very Pixar looking, beautiful, high def, sort of classic modern 3D animation to the more scrappy, rough around the edges 2D style of storytelling and varying degrees of, you know, the artist's hand present in the frame, or if it was very, you know, crisp and colorful and geometrical. And I have to say, the medium is such a playground for doing anything. You know, animation is different than traditional narratives because you have no boundaries. It is about what your creativity will how it will blossom into some visual to share that no one else can see, that's in your mind. And, you know, there were a number of very moving pieces, tough subject matter, and pieces that ranged from kind of very dramatic and sad subjects, you know, loss of children and you know, sort of very sad slice of life, and also history and you know, the dreams of people. So I found one in particular to be a standout that just took took me to another place, really kind of just in how it was drawn alone, the animation itself, how it earned the category. This was the film Genius Loki, which is from France. It's 16 minutes. I just thought it was the most stunning display of artistic, literal craftsmanship, where you see the brushes going by, you feel the time it takes. And a lot of these movies, you understand a lot of time goes into the animation, and a lot of it we don't understand because, you know, it seems so seamless. When you watch a Pixar movie, you don't really grasp the hours, the man hours, the person hours going by, from all the crazy steps, from modeling to rendering, whatever. It's sort of, you have to have a sort of savvy just to understand the labor before your eyes. And then on the flip side, you watch something where somebody has painted a frame and then paints another one and another one and another one. And for me personally, it becomes such an emotional third eye sense of labor is zooming by. The amount, you know, the amount of care and precision to get something across to me, the audience member, is going by. And again, this movie Genius Loki, which is about, I hope people have seen it, or at least, and if they haven't had time, they certainly should seek it out as, you know, one of the animations you go see. It's a story about a woman living in a family in France, and she has an evening out in the town that kind of, she loses control and the world changes around her. And it embraces what animation can do best. Her perspective is handed to us on this gorgeous silver platter of geometry floating by, and sound design, and, you know, things that don't make visual sense and are very artistically kind of you know, broad brushstrokes of gesture, and just like a blap of color, you know, some little thing, it's somebody's face, but something in the corner is not right, and it's just, you know, the sort of raw geometric form of it. You know, you're allowed to do these very experimental and emotional things. And across all these movies, I found a lot of kind of standard, let's do the Pixar thing, let's kind of breathe life into this gooey little snail as he has his adventure, or this guy who has a dead-end job and has a dream, and it's very, you know, it's very Pixar-esque. This one really stood out to me as a poetic attempt to get a story across. I was just so impressed. So so that's been my movie that I've literally gone back to and watched 2 or 3 times now, because of just how stirring, like really emotional it is. There's a shot of a dog running through the street that I will forever be changed by. It is one of the most beautiful things. But I've talked enough. We can switch it up. It was a little rambly.
You pointed out a lot, and I think people who like don't know what goes into making animation, it's really useful to think about that. Like each frame is like a separate thing. You know, it's not a continuous shot.
Yeah.
So we got Genius Loki, okay, and then Norvin, did you have a best picture from your category? I know that you cried through all of them. So.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. Yes, four out of five made me cry. I was watching the fifth, like, is it gonna, you know, is this one gonna do it too? Like each one, I think that I think I'm not sure on a favorite. I know which one I like the least. But they were all pretty good. I mean, you know, I'm not, you know, picky, and I understand what a lot of them were trying to do. I think that they all touched on, you know, all of these different issues that kind of like one of them you're going to relate to, you know what I mean? um at first I was trying to figure out if they were all going to be like a certain theme, like all on, you know, like social justice or something, but then once I got through all of them, it like touched so many different things, and some things where it's like, oh, I relate, and then some things are like, holy cow, like I had no idea that this was like even a thing and how this is going on. And but it could be something that you would watch and you'd say the reverse, you know what I mean? Like you'd probably relate to one that I was totally naive and ignorant to, which is like the present. I thought, I was like, I was like, what's going on? Like at first I was like, what are they doing? You know what I mean? Like, why is he doing this? Like checking in. And then I'm like, oh, this is in Palestine or whatever. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like I didn't, like, I'm not too informed about that, but it was just like, I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I was just fearing the worst, kind of. So, like after seeing Two Distant Strangers, which is like, you know, I'm like checked out when it comes to uh watching you know, black trauma at this point. I don't even like watch anytime there's a news clip or nothing. I'm like, I'm good. I don't watch it. I don't need to see it. I'm not watching a trial at all. So that one hit pretty hard, because uh you just see it over and over. Once they got to that point where I was like, is it going to end? Because it keeps happening over and over. And it just it really pounds it in. So I understand what it was doing and what it was supposed to do, because you feel it. You can't not, like, you're thinking, when's it going to end? And it just doesn't, you know. And that's kind of like what we're dealing with. That there's one part in it where you know, where he chose to actually like talk to him, and I was like, don't tell me he's gonna make it because he like chose to like befriend this guy who was not willing in any kind of way. Like he was being respectful, but and then when it happened again that time, I was just like, oh, like, all right, like I see where we're going. I see what we're dealing with. But as far as a favorite, I think I really like The Letter Room a lot. I think it touched on something I probably haven't seen in a movie ever. Um, so it had that, you know, it brought me to a new place. You know, I've seen the police brutality thing. I've seen, you know, I've seen the first one with Feeling Through. I feel like it kind of reminded me of like this short I saw a long time ago. Well, you know what I'm talking about, Charles. You probably know. It was like the kid was in the grocery store and they like made it into a real movie.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I know
forgot
what
what
you're
it was
talking about.
called, but it reminded me of something that we would probably have done in high school. Not that it was bad,
Hmm.
but like, you know, but I like that you pretty much can assume he's homeless, right?
Yeah.
You saw it? Did you watch it? You guys
Oh,
watched
yeah,
it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And
But
I'm like,
he's
damn, are they gonna touch on that? And they kind of didn't, which is kind of cool. So there's like there's different layers. They're definitely showing me with short movies that these universes are bigger than the 20 minutes that you're watching them. You know what I mean? I think The Letter Room was my favorite. The Present was really good. It killed me because I think about this all the time. Like when you have your daughter and it's like you have to like be put in this position where, do I like defend myself like as a human being, or like so we can just get home, you know? And like I think about that stuff all the time, and that really killed me, that, you know, he just wants to be a good dad and stuff like that. That one obviously, you know, made me cry. The only one that didn't make me cry was White Eye with the bike.
Hmm.
And that's because I don't, you know, I don't think it was supposed to. Could have. I feel like they could have twisted it in there. But The President was really good. That whole situation, now that I'm like kind of brought into it, you know, it's just terrible. Like this whole immigration situation with anywhere is like crazy. Like he's just trying to get home, you know? And like and with these, I really didn't want something like crazy bad to happen. You know, I'm like thinking the worst. I'm like, is this gonna get crazy? Like, are they gonna like um, you know, but so The Leather Room, I think that I thought that was crazy layered because of the character, the main character. First of all, did anyone notice that how much junk he was kind of eating and like drinking. And I'm like, what's up with this? You know, like, are they trying to tell us something? You know what I mean? And that wasn't even like part of it. They were all shot very well. Even the one I liked the least, Wide Eye, which I thought was shot great, with the panning and just the corner area and with the different things happening in the background. I probably got a little too like once the guy, they were talking about, he bought it, and I'm like, he clearly bought it from the thief, you know, but they weren't touching on that. He kept accusing him of being the thief, and I'm like, he got it from the thief. I think obviously that touches on another immigration thing. And you know, I think watching all these shorts in a row really, and since they run the gamut of issues in different places on earth, it kind of simplifies the world in a sense. Like, it kind of humanizes, like, it's supposed to be like we're all here just trying to get home or do the same things, you know what I mean? Like, certain movies you watch, and they're certainly could be based just like American based, you know, guys working, family, something like that. But then when you watch all these different things in a row, it's like you're being hit with the whole world, in a short amount of time. But yeah, I mean, you know, I enjoyed them. I still enjoyed Wide Eye. I'm not hating on it. I guess it's just out of all of them. And then the first one, feeling through, I kind of felt bad, but I also thought it was kind of like a weird spin. Like, why is this guy alone? And I don't know if I've seen blind people, you know, deaf people like be out, but blind and deaf, I feel like, is very dangerous to be by yourself. But maybe that's not the point. And yeah, just for my first thoughts.
I love that. I love that you brought up like what it does to watch like disconnected films in a sequence, because I feel like it's a totally different experience to just watch a short film isolated versus like having them in conversation as a series. So that's really cool. Like, I was thinking about that a lot with the documentary shorts, where like they all similarly, they were all very like socially conscious and like engaged in social issues around the world and also here.
Right.
And I kind of liked that they did have one about police brutality, but it wasn't about like the US police brutality. It was showing what was going on in China and Hong Kong. So I felt like that kind of is maybe more important almost right now, like, because there is this oversaturation to see, like, to have that remove of like, look at this happening in other countries and like how it's just this like universal experience of authority, you know? But I think my favorite for documentary was A Love Song for Latasha, which I don't know if everyone saw it, but it made me think of something you were saying earlier, Norvin, about like just being done with seeing like trauma on film and like being forced to see it, because it's a story about a young Black woman who was shot by a store owner in LA, and that started the LA riots in the 90s. And when her friends start telling the story, like, it just shifts to animation, and it like goes out and it goes black, and you don't see the violence, you don't see the news stories, and like you see instead like her trouble remembering, or not even trouble, just like the pain of remembering. I thought that was such a unique thing to do in a documentary, because it breaks the expectation that we're gonna like see the violence or see like evidence, and it just made it really emotional. Similar to you, I cried through all of them. I feel like I should also like put myself on blast.
Don't be ashamed.
No,
crying.
Toy Story 3.
They're all so heavy, but I think that was definitely my favorite because of that choice. Like, the whole thing was just like a poem, I felt, rather than traditional exposition kind of documentary. Yeah. I don't know. So we all said our votes. So I'll now tell you what the Survey Monkey results were. And again, at the end, we're going to run the poll in the Zoom room. So if you didn't have a chance to watch it, you can vote towards the end, and we'll look at how everyone's feeling in the room. But I happened to choose the one that the Survey Monkey chose. So we had the most votes for A Love Song for Latasha, and then Pretty much every other film got 1 vote. So there was like an even spread, I guess, between the runner-ups. Charles, you were also supported by the
Yeah.
so Genius Loki got the most, followed by the Pixar film Burrow.
Nice.
Norvin, you went a little because you oh gosh, now you chose the letter one, the letter. Okay, so you went on your own. From the Survey Monkey, we had The Present as the winner, and then the runner-up was White Eye. So I'm interested to hear. I don't know. I hear in your explanation. I didn't get to watch all of the live action, so I feel like my vote doesn't matter.
I think that I think I kind of, so the thing with me is like I'm not super, like, I don't watch every single movie or whatever, but I know what I like and I know, you know, what it takes to make it. And I think that as long as they make you feel something, you know what I mean? Even if it's something you don't like, that's like a powerful thing to do with art. And with White Eye, I kind of hated the main guy with the bike, but I'm like, that's good. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that was the point, but then once he tried to like reconcile, like be like, I'm gonna buy it, I was like, it's too late, buddy. Like, you know, like it was kind of like, but you saw like, you know, all these different things. And what a point I was trying to touch on before, I've been really realizing, like, as an American person, how American centered pretty much everything is when you're over here. Like it's this culture and nothing else, kind of like, unless you go seek something else, you're gonna grow up, you know, just being like, you know, yeah, this is what we do in America, and you don't realize how different the whole world is. Like, there's a whole world, and I haven't really been anywhere, but I'm understanding that more now, especially when it comes to things like religion or like gender, and like especially art, music. You know, there's music, like, and I think that once you accept that there's no right way to do it, I feel like a lot of people think that, oh, American stuff, whatever it is we're doing, marriage, one woman, blah blah blah, we do this in America, that's the right way. And I think a lot of people think like that. I mean, it's super clear, and it's been clear in our movies and stuff a lot. So I think anything that shows and run this gamut of different cultures, and not in a way where it's like comparing itself to America either. It's not like, oh, this Arab woman is in New York City, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, no, this is going on over here that has nothing to do with us. So to be able to have that window into that different cultures, like, it just makes you, you know, understand that even vice versa, even looking over here, it's different. And some people probably, I'm sure, I don't know if they even have that kind of nationalism, patriotism, and I mean, in other countries, of course, but I feel like in like smaller countries, they have more interjection with the other countries that surround them. You know, it's not like I can't walk into Nyack and like someone's from Canada is like, you know, oh, I just came over, like, you know what I mean? Like, but in like, you know, Europe, all these countries are always like, oh, I'm from here, I moved here. Like, people like fight to get to not even get out of America at all. Like, people think moving out of America is like crazy concept. And it's like people in other countries do it all the time.
It was a
with
big
films,
place.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's so big. I'm sure you knew that before, but
I just found out.
I mean, I'm finding this out. Like, I'm, you know, New York, born and bred. Like, I'm like, and I want to eat most of the food. I also, now with the short films, I want to see different films. You know, I've seen stuff here and there. Like, I went to Jacob Burns Center like once and saw like a foreign film, and it was really good. And I'm like, damn, why don't I see more of this like anywhere? You know,
and
like, but yeah,
I think that's well, it's funny you say. Actually, I have an unformulated thought. Skip me.
Well,
I'll work on it.
I want to poke Charles though, because he did pick a French film as his choice, and I'm wondering if you think, like, I mean, you know, like, was the French sensibility somewhere in this film?
That is what a fabulous question. You know, there's something, there is a comfort in, I don't know, maybe this is a stupid thing to say, but across my experience with like, I don't know, international films, or even specifically French films, who knows, but even recently seeing a bunch of French movies just because of some other circumstances in my life. There's like a real comfort with poetic storytelling. And you mentioned that there was poetry alive and well in the execution of a love song for Latasha. Like, you know, they do a lot of interesting things with sound design when it clicks into, and like, you know, these lines are being spoken and acted by different people, and we go to animation, you know, there's, and even my pick, which was A Concerto is a Conversation, had a lot of like, this is a documentary, and these are, you know, this is a movie about a father and son, but the way we are choosing to tell this story is by evocative and powerful juxtaposition of images. His foot on the piano pedal, the father's foot on the machine, in the clothing shop, in the dry cleaning shop, like a real kind of classically cinematic style of getting the subject across. And in the case of the animation here, I thought the movies that were lacking the most were kind of doing this more or less by the books thing that felt like the one about the guy in the mailroom didn't like, felt like it was just kind of trotting the trod, which is my new way of saying walking the walk of what Pixar has been doing for so long, which is kind of a very safe sort of mystical, oh, sort of look at this man's life. If he had a dream and he wanted to do this thing, and then somebody inspired him later, and it's all like, oh boy, it's that kind of story. And a few of these were sort of evoked that for me. And again, this Genius Loci one was like, this is a movie about this crazy moment, this one moment that happens to somebody when they go out one night, and where they kind of lose control and become vulnerable, and somebody becomes emotionally important to them, and they like lose their mind. And we see that losing of the mind, and they are literally like transformed into a dog and run through the streets trying to get home. I thought, like, we're talking about symbols and like myth and all kinds of crazy, you know, a big pool of storytelling resources to dip into to get this point across. And some of the other movies just didn't really like do that. They were kind of just more quirky things, except for one other, which is I do want to talk about this movie real quick, because we're talking kind of about understanding the format of animation as a medium, and like, you know, you've got a captive audience for 20 odd minutes. What are you going to do with them, to them in this time? And the movie Opera, which for those who haven't seen it, is like one stage, one scenario, this triangle where a lot of things are happening, and the whole movie is the camera just like slowly reveals and widens out this immense, intricate, triangular land where little beings are going about their lives and partaking in the machinery of society. But this movie evoked such like crippling viewer audience anxiety in me, because it seemed like the filmmakers misunderstood how to do this incredible thing they were trying to do. Let's make this unimaginably intricate world, and then we'll be you know, we're holding their hand through the showing of it. But this world is so dense And each little pocket is telling such a specific story that if the movie was an hour long, you still would not have had time to soak it all in. So you're watching, you're at minute 3, we're halfway down the pyramid, and I know I'm lost. I know that the one guy I was trying to track as he moves down this conveyor belt of life into the depths of hell and back up again. This movie should not have been a short. It should have been a gallery installation where your audience member can walk up and stress-free interact with a very intricate visual space and follow the thread that they want to. And when they're exhausted, they walk away and they know they can come back to the museum tomorrow. It's fine. But this was like this 8-minute chunk of too much was overwhelming. And like I wanted to like it so badly. I don't want to just like rag on this opera film too much longer, but it was interesting to see that they included a movie in the running that is so like you can't help but think this is beautiful. This is really a very special thing to be looking at. It is gorgeous. It is animated within an inch of its life, but it's wrong for the medium. It felt like it kind of lived and died in the wrong vessel. It should have been some other way. And I'm glad it's in there. Like I think this kind of piece has value. I just really think it was out of place. Yeah, but to your original question of poetry, I think, or even like which movies benefited from being a little more loose, or a little, not even loose, but a little more gestural and emotional rather than sort of storytelling by the books. I felt a lot throughout the shorts and the animated shorts. I felt like we are watching the playbook at work. The story is unfolding in sort of clockwork fashion, and only with a few of them, including my personal pick, did I feel like we broke away from something. This is worthy of the Academy's eyeballs. You know, something new and very exciting is happening, and I was kind of disappointed by how sort of standard-ish a number of the films were. Like it was like the Academy were just kind of, you know, playing it safe in some way, and then there are the standouts, of course. But enough.
But no, I wondered about opera too, because it felt almost to me like it brought up a lot about like indie games and video games. Because I think now, like, you know, a lot of film schools, like within their film programs, will offer like the game design in the same, you know, so I feel like it's being considered even more and more a way to apply filmmaking. So
yes, when
I saw it, I was like, is there going to be a video game category in like 10 years? I mean, not that I imagine
wonder, man.
the Academy to be like that progressive, but it felt like a similar experience where like this feels like more interactive and thinks about world building in a different way. So I started to wonder about that.
That's a very, you're pointing a finger at a very interesting middle ground here, because like the experience, there's no Oscars for the thing, like the video art you see on the wall in the Met, in MoMA or someplace. The Met's not going to have any video art. There's a huge world for video game awards. Like it's a huge artistic field. There's the video game awards are a big deal. Video games are having their moment in the sun in their own little category. But here is this movie that's in between both, where it's very kind of perspectiveless, or you know, it relies on the perspective of the person watching it to draw a narrative thread, and that is exactly what a video game is. You are if you walk away from the video game, it stops playing, and you are the thing that is the driving force. And in opera, that's exactly the case. So it's this weird Venn diagram that I think is really a category of its own, where it's almost an installation piece. It has its roots in shorts, but it's something else.
Yeah, I mean, I've, you know, I haven't played too many crazy games, but I know of them, and a lot of them do have these cutscenes and storylines that are essentially movies and
Yeah.
dialogue, and they have voices. Even actors are doing it, and basically you're kind of like just playing in between a movie, you
Yeah.
know. And that is crazy to think about, because there's plots and there's dialogue and there's stuff that gets graded and awarded, so there isn't really a big difference, you know what I mean? Just the only
Yeah.
difference is while you're watching it, it's going to stop and you're going to play, but what you're watching is essentially short stories at a time.
Yeah,
Short movies.
with
Yeah.
pieces in between of you're affecting it in
Like
some
you
way.
put it together. If you take all the cutscenes of a video game and you put it together, you might have an hour or two movie.
Yeah,
You know, without playing. And you know, and those things still, they have all the elements as far as, you know, and nowadays, especially touching social issues and stuff like that. You know, it's not just like, oh, you got to beat this alien up anymore. You know, like, you know, there's really in-depth things going on.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that's like, you know, breaching the, you know, the subject matter from outside our normal,
Yeah.
you know, video game.
It's a major like storytelling style. You know, the people using video games for straight up story, like they are telling stories and you are interacting with them in some way, and that line gets blurry.
Is there a category for music videos? No, right?
I wish.
No,
There
they do like
should
best
now.
score and stuff, right? And soundtrack.
Yeah. But I do think so many good music videos. I was just thinking a lot about that too. It's like that's like a whole other form of
What
short
about
film.
what about there's musicals, right? I haven't seen a modern musical.
They got to bring them back.
Not long ago, that one about in LA.
La La Land.
Yeah, that was the jazz one, right?
Yeah. But about the animation film you were talking about, is it called Opera? That reminded me so much of that film a few years ago, Snowpiercer, which is a film, because it's this self-contained world where they produce their own food, and they have every car you go into, a different thing is happening, and different classes of society, and a different world in each room. So, and that also was Korean. So maybe it's something cultural going on there. That was my observation, but I don't know what that thing is that's going on, but I just made that connection.
I would be very curious. I haven't done any research, I confess, about where opera came from. And now I might do a quick Googling, maybe.
It was a USA film. I don't know about the producers or anything though, but I think it technically is a US film. But,
oh really? Goodness.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna, just while we're on the topic of this, I want to launch the poll, just if anyone in the audience wants to weigh in on what they think for the category. So we'll give like a little bit of time for people to answer that, and we'll talk about it towards the end. But does anybody else anyone in the audience want to share any thoughts or ask any questions? We have about like 15 minutes or so left.
Well, hang on. Can you move that little screen, Vera?
Yeah.
I can't see myself. I can't talk if I can't see myself. I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna be a critic of any particular film, and I just felt like the animation, in the way that the animators present themselves or how the films are chosen, I don't know which is the chicken and which is the egg, but the animation films just all seem to be like a business card. Not necessarily all of them, but all of those ones that come from big Hollywood studios, those aren't independent films. Those are being produced by really, really well-established animation companies. it's completely different from the documentary and the live action categories. And I think that's, I don't know why. I don't know why, because we don't know how many other films were rejected from not nominated. So we don't know what the other film choices were, but
yeah.
That's true. And Pixar always is represented in the short animation category, and the other, some of the other companies too. But there is a similar. There is one thing about the other films historically, until like the rise of digital filmmaking, when everybody was making films and you really were expressing yourself however you felt because you knew you weren't going to sell it to Hollywood anyway. But before that, when you had to shoot on 16 millimeter, or maybe even Super 8, doesn't matter. The short films were called calling card films. And that was supposed to get you a job, or you could take it to an agent or take it to Hollywood. And this is supposed to show, but in order for that to work, you had to tell a very specific kind of story, stories that appeal to Hollywood, that appeal to television. They have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And yes, if it can make you cry, that's awesome. You've got to pack in a strong story in terms of a narrative, not just a story in terms of a mood or a look, which are totally valid forms of storytelling, but not in Hollywood. In Hollywood, it's got to be a narrative story that gets you really going, gets you involved, and ends happily or with a tear, or they have to have this arc. So this and that's what the vestiges still are in the short film categories in the Oscars. These are not representative of short films that are going on. Most short films that are going on, which if you look at Rockland in Motion, you see a lot of dance films, you see all kinds of stuff. I mean, people are making whatever comes to their mind. But in the Oscars, it's still very strictly, and not entirely, the film about what was her name, Latasha. That film, that was very poetic. That was an unusual exception to this rule. But in general, the documentary and live action do follow a formula. The Japanese or Hong Kong demonstration film also didn't have that. That was a very interestingly constructed film as well. But in general, yeah, it's sort of this what you were talking about, Roger. There is a formula. You are expected to follow it.
But I think the animation category was dominated so much more by established big companies, whereas, even though they are calling card films, all categories, I do agree with that. And that's a Hollywood, that's a tradition. How do you get your first feature? Make a great short. But by the same token, most of those other live action and documentary films were not made by hugely established entities. They were made by new filmmakers, or at least not well-known filmmakers. Whereas I don't know. I mean, Burrow, for instance, it's fun to watch, but it just doesn't go anywhere really.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same with some of the other, big name. It's kind of surprising that they wouldn't want to do something very, very impactful if they're going to do this at all. Pixar and whatever the other companies were.
Yeah, that remains my question too, in a way, is, everybody, we're all so very aware, or we're scratching the surface on sort of a grand cultural pool of stories and understanding. We know that there are voices unheard, and there are movements to try to make those voices heard. And what is special about this angle, this individual, this group that has been left out of the spotlight, has not had their chance to do something to make a stand for themselves in entertainment culture. And the sort of, where the hell was I going? I felt that same presence of why aren't they really going to the wall with this? Why aren't they being a little more risky? Because my God, if I last year didn't have my mind blown by animations unlike anything I'd ever seen, and shorts that were so small and moving, and you know, utterly unique and novel, and I felt a big presence of like the sort of the establishment here. Like, why aren't they? And meanwhile, they could use this incredible Academy platform to be new and edgy and, you know, and welcoming of all walks of life. If they kind of didn't play it quite so safe, it did feel like.
I didn't see them, but do you think it's because usually this is kind of like their way of their own indie type thing, since it's not a cartoon character that's already established? Because
do you in the animation specifically?
Yeah, like Pixar or whoever is probably like, okay, we don't have to make, you know, Garfield for this thing. Let's do something, and they want to show off that. You know, it's kind of like, let's say like Justin Bieber walks by a small bar and gets on the mic in front of like people instead of like the open mic people who are usually there. You know, it's like, hey, I don't usually get to do this on my big stage, so let me you know.
Are you suggesting there's nepotism in the Academy? I think there
there
might well be.
It's like, hey, we have something that's, you know, like I'm sure they want more stuff that's not, you know, a cartoon that's already made again. You know what I mean? I'm sure they're like, can we do something that we want to do or new? Like,
I wonder.
So
yeah,
I'm
so
sure
curious.
would you like to draw, like if someone was like, hey Charles, like this is your job, you're gonna draw this guy that we've already seen the last 30 years.
Maron. Yeah, that would be
like some. And they're like, look at what we can do with all this technology and all these colors and computers, and you're like, okay, now give us, you know, Sonic the Hedgehog, you know.
And you go crazy from the well, you know, it's funny you say that. Maybe my pick is even Genius Loki was made by a number of animators who were involved in bigger projects like The Secret of Kells and that other Wolf Walker, I think is their new movie. But it felt, and it totally feels like, hey, you were on our crew and you made that little movie. Well, welcome to the spotlight. It did definitely feel like there was a lot of, you know, big small fish and kind of exclusive ponds getting their moment in the sun here.
Juliana, did you well I didn't see the documentary ones, but were they all like, were any of them like lighthearted at all or not?
No,
but like one thing that I did think was interesting, like I felt like there was this like subplot happening between the films of like just incorporating how much like citizens are part of like documentary storytelling, like in Do Not Split, that was the one that was about like the protests in China and Hong Kong and police brutality, and they incorporated like a lot of footage from phones and like that was sent in from protesters or just taken on the street. And like even when you start off, you like go in with like people breaking into a bank and setting it on fire. And that just to me felt like a really interesting approach, because I saw it in a few others, like Hunger Ward. I think MTV sponsored it. But they had a similar moment where they switched from like the really like, you know, stylized photography into just showing the footage from someone's phone of when a bomb went off. And I just thought that was really interesting, like throughout the documentaries, to be like, okay, you're kind of pushing back a little bit of like what it means to make a documentary and who gets to contribute the footage for that. Like, can we include the footage from the people who actually were there rather than just flying in afterwards?
And that subject matter is so ripe for that contribution from citizens. Like both of them are about, especially Do Not Split and Hunger Ward is like, it's sort of boots on the ground storytelling, and there are lots of people around who are undertaking the modern job of documentarian in their day-to-day life. And I didn't even think about it from that angle, that so much of the great impact of what's going on in these two in particular is felt in the number of voices that contribute to the final thing. That there, you know, there's, I would never have guessed that, you know, the story Do Not Split in particular, let's just say, it's the situation in Hong Kong feels many times over elevated because the perspective is from so many people and the shared experience, and then their footage becomes in the movie. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think that's a way into some of the like ethical issues that I think a lot of documentary filmmakers think about or like get wrapped up in, or like, I don't know, it's just how it's like a whole other way to let it be a more organic story. Yeah. Yeah, but I felt some like Hunger Ward, I did, like, it's obviously a super important story, and I thought it was well told, and there was some fun, like, you know, things they were doing cinematography with the images, but that felt like like the safer of the ones in terms of the way the story was told. Like, it felt very straight narrative, and yeah, I did think there were, you know, the love song for Latasha took some really cool risks. I was surprised to see it in there. Yeah. And also, I agreed with you about, I thought the concerto is a conversation. That was my second choice. Because it did feel like that was just becoming its own song in a really interesting way.
It's kind of the most by the books. Well, it's not really by the book. It's like this is a bio piece. It's kind of nested really well with two people and gets to deal in subject matter involving music and involving these two characters in a certain way. It gets to, yeah, it gets elevated by that.
Colette was also a very traditional kind of documentary. I thought it worked really interestingly with Do Not Split, which is sort of challenging the viewer, like, what do you think of this? What's your position? How would you react? Will, you know, where is the point where you'll be on the street, or will you never be on the street? And Colette addressed that in a very interesting way. For those who haven't seen it, this is a woman in France who's a survivor of a concentration camp. She was a member of the French underground resistance, and so was her brother. They risked their lives to do that. He died. He was killed in a worked to death in a concentration camp, and she survived. And it tells a whole story in an emotional way that you would expect it to. And at some point, she basically says, that she had to make a decision, and that this was her decision. That she didn't feel that it was a choice. She had to do this, and it was a challenge to the viewer too. Like, where do you draw the line? At what point will you make the decision that she made? Apparently, according to the film, 1% of French people did join the resistance. I thought that was more than I had expected. I thought it was a much smaller thing, but nonetheless, these were people that risked their lives to fight the Nazis. Some of them were Jewish, and it was, you know, do or die. Others were not, but still fought. And I just thought that the comparison between her story, Colette, and having to make that ultimate choice, and the story of Do Not Split, where thousands and thousands and thousands of kids are in the street getting very close to making that choice. Some of them do in that film sort of get to the point where there's, okay, well, we've given up our lives, our future is shot, we're 100% committed to this and we're going to fight this to the end. We don't really know what's going to happen or how, what's happened since. But I ended up, no one else chose it. I did choose Colette as for that very reason, that she was challenging the viewer. Where, where is the point for you?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people's survival level is different. Like you said, it was like do or die really for them, and like a lot of us, even me, if I'm sitting in my house, there's a cat and like my kids are like fed and like are about to go to sleep, like even though I have anger and I have this thing, is it enough to make me go out there right this second and like risk taking myself away from them, because of all the danger and the violence, so I think that your survival is different. Like for me, my survival would be if I was literally like having people come into my house and take me out versus me leaving my house on my own doing. So I think a lot of people have a different capacity, like you said, with the younger kids and with climate change and stuff like that. That's it. You know what I mean? Like they have that. We're already like, oh, in our 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, and we're like, we don't see it as like it's over for us. Like it's like, oh well, all right, like we had a good time.
Yeah. And it's interesting the way the filmmakers handle it too, Matthew, between the two films, because it felt like in Do Not Split, the way it opens with like you breaking into the bank with them and like witnessing essentially a crime of like setting it on fire. It's like, okay, you've now implicated me as the viewer in your form of resistance in a way. Like it's interesting. I didn't think about it directly in that way, but yeah, Colette, it is more like I had more of the reaction Norvin's talking about, like thinking about my own, like what would inspire me to take the more like serious plunge. I didn't think about it in the same way when I watched Do Not Split. Yeah.
Why don't I go through the? I seem to have the poll poll results. So why don't I go through those in the live action short films? This is pretty much the same as the Survey Monkey. The present had the most and the letter room was represented. In the animated, again, all the votes were for the Genius Loci. Is that how you say it?
I think Loki, like
Loki, right.
but I could be wrong.
Charles' favorite film. And in the documentaries, Concerto is a Conversation, and Do Not Split were represented. That Concerto is a Conversation got twice as many as Do Not Split, and the other films were not represented. So it sort of ended up the same, but a little bit different.
Well, it's really interesting to like put, to see how it even shifted throughout the night, the responses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how these choices compare to what the Academy votes for.
Yeah.
And we'll continue. We're showing the short films through the end of the month, and the Survey Monkey poll will be active. So get people to answer it, and yeah, it will be interesting to see how the local viewers compare to what the Academy members think.
Right, because so far there does seem to be sort of a consensus around a few of the films being as the top picks of the group so far that we've seen.
Yeah.
Done a third poll of just, we have our choices. Which ones do we think the Academy will choose?
I love this game.
I think the one that I didn't like the most, they're gonna pick as the best.
Whichever, in every category. It always does seem that way.
I really didn't like him cutting the bike in half at the end.
That was stupid. Come
Yeah.
on, man.
Yeah.
The movie had me until
Don't you think that's a reference to the story of Solomon cutting the baby in half?
Yes.
Oh,
I
see, I'm
mean-
not that smart.
Well,
I don't know that.
that story,
I mean, I get it.
there are two mothers. I don't know what it means, what it's saying
Right.
exactly that he cuts the bike in half, that he does cut the bike in half, whereas in the Solomon story, he managed to avoid that terrible outcome because one of the mothers said, "Oh, it's you can have the baby rather than cutting it in half." So
Oh, it's like a take on that.
yeah.
Oh, I like it. Okay, all right.
You must be
I agree with Norvin. I thought that film was really flawed by the idea that the guy whose bike it was didn't realize immediately that the person he's accusing didn't buy it from the real thief. That
Yeah.
just seemed like
Yeah.
totally obvious. But nobody mentioned that whole film was one take.
Yeah, it's wild.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
even.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
wild.
know
One
that.
take.
Really?
Yeah, it's all one take.
Yeah.
It was
Wow.
interesting the way it moved around the
Yeah, see, I was like, that was good about it.
And the stuff in the background, that was really interesting too. But yeah, it's all
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
That
I
film
love-
bugged me though. I mean, it didn't really have complete credibility in my mind. I mean, it bothered me throughout.
Yeah.
This bike was stolen and sold to somebody else.
Yeah.
And which makes the one take thing feel really just sort of
It's like a gimmick.
show offy. And
Yeah.
I mean,
It
it could
doesn't
have been
really-
like we weren't really supposed to focus on the bike and just
I don't know if that bike
on the
is
shot.
from
This was just happening while we were watching. I thought he was gonna just take it, like be like, you know what, he's gone. It's mine now.
Yeah, it was such a
Like-
strange way to kind of conclude. Well, unless of course they were making a sort of mythological point.
Yeah, that one's gonna win.
You did.
Because
Yeah, we heard it here first.
yeah, I would.
Oh, you know what I really liked? I liked all the small little things that probably have nothing to do with the plots. In the letter room, where so the lady was saying that she was doing those letters just for him, kind of, right? So he thought he would do that with the guy whose daughter stopped. And you knew the guy, as soon as he saw it, he was like, okay, whatever you
Yeah.
say, but like he knew like that it was he wrote that, and I thought that was really good. I like that part.
Okay, well, I don't want to keep people too over. I know we're over time, but I just wanted to say thank you again. This was an awesome discussion. It's good to see everyone. Thank you all for taking time to watch the films and to vote. I'll just also plug, since we are talking about, like Norvin brought it up earlier, climate change and like the future of the world and everything. We have a film festival that we're currently selling tickets for, and we're gonna have a discussion on Wednesday at 7. So the Wild and Scenic Film Festival, which has a special focus this year on women and trans folks in film, both as protagonists and behind the camera. So I think this will be a really interesting follow-up to this, because these really are more like indie filmmakers out in the field making these films and doing it with a real like social plug. So I put the link to register for that if anyone's interested.
Nice.
Am I forgetting any other announcements? I think that's all for now.
As part of that festival, we also have an awesome auction running at the same time, starting later tonight, with a lot of outdoor items that you could get maybe for a steal if you make the winning bid.
Most of them are at our house right now.
What is it?
Yeah, what are the?
Easy pickup in Nyack. No, they're not. Just a few of them. Most of them are in Ramsey, New Jersey, but we'll make sure you get them if you win. But you should check them out.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Will do.
All right.
Nice.
This was really interesting. Thanks to you all.
Yeah, thank you for all.
Nice to see you, Charles.
Hey, likewise over
Been
there.
a long time.
It's been a minute. Oh, it's almost like real life. This Zoom thing. How about that? Well, next year in Jerusalem, so to speak.
Thank you, folks. This is great.
Bye. Thank you
So much for watching all those movies.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.